Well, hello and a very warm welcome to The Race. It's our weekly series in the run-up to the ANC's elective conference in December. Research groups Mark Data and African Response have been conducting interviews right across the country in recent months, polling people for their views on the ANC, candidate choice, corruption, poverty and a whole lot more. And this week we're going to get the results from the Western Cape. The ANC, of course, is the opposition party there, so a very different dynamic for the party itself. Joining me is commentator and political economist Lumkile Monde. So the Western Cape, Lumkile. So let's first of all bring the Western Cape up if we can. 182 delegates. We're going to look at some of the facts about the province in just a moment. But this is an interesting one given the unusual political dynamic as far as the Western Cape is concerned. This wasn't just a poll with ANC supporters.
Yes.
Talk to us about the methodology and what the value of polling opposition members was.
The uniqueness of the province and the fact that it's run by the DA made the focus to be as broad as possible. So we got out of about 569 respondents, about 176 were ANC, and the rest were other parties. And that really was to try and gauge how many, given the consequence of the respondents in the past elections, that had voted DA and other parties, and hence the bias towards the other parties than the ANC.
A little bit later, we're going to see some interesting coalescing of views between ANC members and opposition party members, and we'll bring in our other two guests, Lester Kivitt and Karima Brown, in terms of that in just a moment. But let's just look at the Western Cape in totality. First of all, 182 delegates it brings to the process. How much firepower then does the ANC in the Western Cape bring to the conference at the end of the year?
Well, in fact, if, for example, given the fact that the KZN is the biggest, followed by Mpumalanga, so if you've got Mpumalanga, the Western Cape could be quite critical. So therefore, although in comparative terms, it's not a large number, however, given the fraction that we've seen the ANC, it will be a substantial number that they'll bring to the ANC conference in December.
So as they say in American politics, it could be a swing province as far as the ANC is concerned if certain things happen.
It will add quite a number of votes for that candidate that will be looking to win, given the constitution that we've seen the ANC.
Let's just put up a couple of facts as far as the Western Cape is concerned. And smallest province in terms of branch members, coloured people a minority, but a provincial majority in the Western Cape. But interestingly, the party has never won an outright majority here. The DA has won most votes. It always has been very closely contested, hasn't it?
It has been, and also some part of it is to do with the ANC strategic mistake by Africanizing themselves rather than by looking at the broader consequences. And therefore, it's not surprising that the ANC will always have a struggle there up until they can work out themselves how they become inclusive, given the weakness and the dominance of the colored vote and the importance thereof that vote.
All right, and very quickly, if we can just look at provincial leadership, if we can, and this was a key date as far as the party was concerned, July 2017, and the problems, it seems such a long time ago, with the Dullah Omar region. That was a real setback for the party, wasn't it?
It was a very big setback, given the stature of Dullah himself, and the fact that Dullah had played such a critical role with the formation of the EF 1983, and as a lawyer as well, in representing quite a number of people. So therefore, those events and the fact that there are issues there was really a big setback for the ANC as a movement in that region.
Now let's go to the research, if we can. And with Karima and Lester, we are going to pick up on the research in more detail a little bit later on. But this is very important here. This was one of the top lines that we had. Is there a corrupt relationship between President Zuma and the Guptas? Now look at these two lines here. This is what I meant about the coalescing. Yellow, ANC voters, blue are other party voters. That's pretty close.
That's pretty close. I think it's also to do with the national developments that we've seen over the past few months and as well over the weekend. So we shouldn't be too surprised at all, because I think there's really big concerns around this issue of corruption in the country.
And as you say, this is not something which is uniquely confined to the Western Cape.
Not at all.
It's also around other provinces.
Yes, we saw in KZN as well.
There's a fascinating slide we'll put up a little bit later about how the Western Cape itself has dealt with issues of corruption. We'll get to that a little bit later on. But this is also important. If there was proof between Jacob Zuma and the Guptas, what would happen? Let's put up that slide if we can. So is there proof of corruption between President Zuma and the Guptas? How do you read that?
Well, in fact, this is very fascinating because if you look last week in the case of KZN, that African people specifically and ANC members were sympathetic to Zuma going to jail and they wanted the Guptas to go to jail. So here you can see quite clearly that the ANC voters would like to see, about 47% of them want to see Zuma and the Guptas. However, this is not big enough. We have supposed that they'll be very close to the other party voters. So it indicates to us that they somehow in their minds differentiate between Zuma as well as the Guptas, that maybe the Guptas should pay more, and hence the bias towards the 52.5% that didn't agree with the Zuma as well as the Guptas going to jail together.
Okay, we're going to talk about this a lot more, but this is critical because after all, this is essentially what the program is about. It's the race for the top prize.
Yes.
So let's see how the different candidates stack up. 41.9% for Cyril Ramaphosa and under 15% for Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. Does he have it in the bag?
Yes. I think for the Western Cape, he's got it in the bag. I think what is going to be critical for Mr. Ramaphosa is whether, given that last week you saw he was far behind from Nkosazana Zuma in KZN, so whether this momentum we'll see in the next results remains to be seen. But I think the Western Cape, he can definitely smile that he's got in the bag.
It all comes down to the delegates, though, as far as the different provinces.
Very much.
Okay, Lumkile Monde, thank you very much. And I'm going to ask you in just a moment to take your seat at our big round table. We'll have plenty more of this fascinating research to unpack, more detail on the Western Cape candidate preferences, plus a scorecard for Premier Helen Zille from ANC supporters in the province. And as I mentioned, response from our panel, political commentator and broadcaster Karima Brown, and in Cape Town, political reporter Lester Kivitt. All to come when the race continues.